Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 for the very first time on this channel since I think like early May. It's been a while since I've discussed the Switch 2 on this channel, and I expect that to start ramping up over the next several months as we get closer and closer to the official reveal of this console. We start seeing more leaks, that kind of thing, so get used to it. We're going to be talking about the Switch 2 a lot over the next, 6 months or so, I imagine, but we had something interesting get translated from their shareholder meeting yesterday that I wanted to talk about just because it's a good sign of things to come. Nintendo's starting to be more open about Switch 2 when answering investor questions, which is always just exciting, right? Like, we are finally getting to that point where the floodgates kind of have opened. I mean, it's been quiet the past, 6 weeks, but we are so close, right? Nintendo has officially acknowledged it, and now they're talking about it in their Q&As, and there was something pretty interesting that I wanted to read today. So, reading from IGN, Wesley Yinpool over there, Nintendo has said the most effective strategy for beating the inevitable Switch 2 scalpers is to make enough consoles to meet demand. When the Nintendo Switch launched back in March 2017, it suffered from a constrained supply, boosting scalpers who sold the console at inflated prices. In recent years, the manufacture of Switch was affected by a shortage of components, making it harder to find. Now, if you were there in 2017, you know that this thing was basically impossible to find for, I would say, at least the first 4 to 5 months, but it wasn't really until holiday 2017 that you could go into a store and just see a Nintendo Switch. So that's part of the reason I've always predicted Switch 2 March 2025, because releasing it in March allows them time to, inevitably they're going to sell out of their stock for the core Nintendo enthusiast, but that way, release it in March, you're going to sell out anyway, and then that gives them that 6-month period until the holiday season to really start ramping up production and have stock on store shelves for families for Christmas. I mean, I still remember waiting in line at 6 a.m. when I want to say January 11th, 2017 at my local GameStop to get a pre-order for this thing, and even then, console itself, yeah, I was able to get that by waiting for, 3 or 4 hours. I still wasn't able to get a pre-order for the Breath of the Wild Master Edition, even though I waited 4 hours and I was 5th in line. So hopefully, as we continue reading here, hopefully Nintendo's able to really meet that demand with the Switch 2, because with the Switch, there were still a lot of people that were skeptical, but the Switch 2, I don't think really anybody's skeptical now. Everybody's going to want this thing on day one, or at least a lot more people than what wanted the Switch on day one, if that makes sense. So continuing on here, speaking in an investor-focused Q&A translated by IGN, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa said things will be different when it comes to launching the Switch successor. He said, quotes, "As a countermeasure against resale, we believe that the most important thing is to produce a sufficient number to meet customer demand, and this idea has not changed since last year," Furukawa said. In addition to this, we are considering whether there are any other measures that can be taken to the extent allowed by laws and regulations, taking into account the circumstances of each region. So he's literally talking about taking scalpers down by force of law if they must, which is interesting. I don't think there's much they can do about that in, America and Europe, but I imagine Japan has a little bit of a stricter policy on that kind of thing. He continues on here. Although we were unable to produce sufficient quantities of Nintendo Switch hardware last year and the year before due to a shortage of semiconductor components, the situation has now been resolved. At this time, we do not believe that the shortage of components will have a significant impact on the production of the successor model. So it's nice to see them kind of doubling down and being like, listen, we are going to do our best to make sure that A, there's enough stock for everybody when this thing releases, but also specifically honing in on scalpers. I know nobody likes scalpers, so seeing them in a Q&A like this is being like, yeah, we're going to try to do something about it. We can't really promise anything, we'll do what we can. We'll make as many as we can. We can see what kind of laws we can use to our advantage to stop this from happening when this Switch 2 launches, but it's still nice no matter what to see them kind of reaffirming that, they will try to do something here and make this thing available. Now, will they be successful? Absolutely not. I don't think this thing's going to be easy to get at launch. I already know whatever I'm doing that day, plans are canceled. I will have to be at GameStop to pre-order it because it's the Switch 2, man. As someone who's been through, 3 Nintendo's console launches now, and I mean, I know that's not a lot compared to some people, but I've been through 3 Nintendo console launches now. I remember the Wii, and that was just horrible. And then I remember the Wii U. I mean, it was still sold out that first month because it was a new Nintendo console. And then with the Switch, it was 6-7 months before it was really stocked well. No one cared about the Wii U, and not as many people cared about the Switch when it came out as they do now. The amount of people that will want a Switch 2 on a release day is going to be astronomical. Possibly the most of any Nintendo console ever launched, because Switch momentum is still there. Yes, the Switch is selling less each year, but the active install base, the active user base on Nintendo Switch continues to rise year after year. So I imagine a lot of that, user base will want to kind of carry over to the Switch 2. Now, a lot of those people might wait until holiday. They might wait until 2026, 2027 when there's more software available. But the point is, we are looking at a scenario where there will be more people on day one that want to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 than probably any other Nintendo console ever before it's on day one, right? Because, we're expecting a pretty stellar first-party lineup of a new 3D Mario game. I'm expecting like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart to be announced or released, kind of within that first year window. It's going to be a crazy time trying to get this thing. And while it's nice to see them, kind of pledging their allegiance to trying to make sure there's enough stock, I don't think they'll be able to meet that demand. If this thing releases in March or April next year, which is where I'm kind of still hedging my bets, that's fine. It's going to sell out to, once again, that core Nintendo enthusiast, that tech enthusiast. And then hopefully by holiday, you're able to get enough stock out. Now, if you remember back in January, there was a report that claimed that there would be 10 million Switch 2 units ready for like the first wave, the launch window, right? Reading from Insider Gaming right here, they say, it was recently claimed in a report published by Bloomberg citing Omdia data that the Switch 2 will be released in later 2024 with an 8-inch LCD screen and not an OLED display. This caused ripples in the gaming community as Nintendo fans cried out against the step back in technology. That was a big deal when that happened. Now, more plans have surfaced to the same source, suggesting that Nintendo has plans to manufacture a whopping 10 million Switch 2 units in the financial year starting in April 2024. This would hopefully avoid the initial rush of consumers looking to snag a Nintendo Switch 2 device in stores worldwide, circumventing the stock issues that tend to plague a new console release. I mean, if they're able to get literally 10 million units out within the first 2 months, that might be sufficient, right? I'm looking on the VG Sales Fandom Wiki, which kind of just compiles a bunch of the data from Nintendo's financial reports. It looks like as of March 31st, 2017, there were just under 3 million Nintendo Switches out there. So that's what? A 1 month window, right? So 3 million in a month. And then by June 30th, there was 4.7 million. By September 30th, 2017, there was 7.6. December 31st, there was basically 15 million. So if they're able to get 10 million out, like literally at the start, then maybe it will be plentiful. If the Switch only sold, just under 3 million in 1 month, I think 10 million for Switch 2, I mean, that's quite a bit more, but the demand is so much higher now that even that I'm not like 100% confident would be enough to make it, completely like, yes, no matter what, you're going to walk into a Walmart and find one of these things. You can go on Amazon and buy one. But if 10 million's like, for the first wave being like 6 months, then that number becomes a lot less impressive. So we'll have to wait and see. Of course, that also could be misinformation. In that same thing I just read, they said it was releasing in 2024, which was obviously never in the cards. But yeah, it's getting exciting, guys. We're getting there. We are finally at a point now where Nintendo is answering questions about this thing openly in Q&As, and I imagine we'll start seeing some leaks here soon. If it's releasing in the first half of 2025, which I still think is going to happen, right? If it's releasing that early next year, we should start seeing some leaks soon, right? I think it was July 2016 that Eurogamer did the initial report on the Joy-Con and the dock for the Nintendo Switch. I'm not expecting anything this month, but I would say by September, we should have some sort of juicy details about this console, and then from there, it'll be reveal season. I'm actually going to do a video, I think, next week talking about when I think it'll actually be revealed now, because we got a really packed June Direct. I feel like that changed some things. I actually do think we will get a September Direct now, which also changes things. So we'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments below. How do you feel about Nintendo openly talking about taking down scalpers and making sure there is a plentiful supply of Switch 2 at launch? Do you think they will be able to achieve that goal, or do you think it's all just wishful thinking? I would love to get a conversation going down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and until next time, folks, peace.